Good evening and welcome to the Drive at 5 on IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station. I'm your host, Roman, and we have a terrific show planned for you today. First, the forecast from our IntellectualRadio.com Weather Center. Today, scattered thunderstorms. High, 80 degrees. Tonight, partly cloudy skies and a stray of showers or thunderstorms possible. Low, 59 degrees. Tomorrow, partly cloudy skies in the morning will give way to cloudy skies in the afternoon. High 66 degrees. Tomorrow night, partly cloudy skies again. Low of 55 degrees. The rest of the week forecast looks like this. Wednesday, sunny, high 68 degrees. Thursday, isolated thunderstorms, high 77 degrees. And on Friday, yes, Friday, they're calling it the first ever heat wave. Let's see, mostly sunny, high 93 degrees. And on Saturday, 95 degrees. The Drive at 5 is part of the Monday Night Mogul with one sister to another at its new time, Sundays, 10 a.m. on Sundays. Monday Night Mogul with Rhea Ray Harris, Straight No Chaser at 6 p.m. Maze Jackson with Maze Says at 8 p.m. Keeping It Real Estate with Harold Arnold at 3 p.m. And yes, Monday Night Mingle is back on Monday nights at 7 p.m. The Drive at 5 is also part of the fabulous 5 at 5, only on IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station. Today, my guest is a senior advisor to Reverend Jesse Jackson at Rainbow Push Coalition. On the intellectual line, please give a Drive at 5 welcome to Reverend Dr. Jeanette Wilson. Welcome to the Drive.
Thank you so much. I'm excited about being on this program.
Well, thank you so much. Please give IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station your background.
Well, I've been in the movement, I suppose, all of my adult life, and I started with the Rainbow Push Coalition. Really, when it was Operation Red Basket, I walked a picket line with St. Clair Booker, who was at that time the lead organizer for the demonstrators who shut down the A&P stores, and we would demonstrate against places that were selling bad meat or didn't hire black people to work as managers, or stores that refused to allow blacks to build a store. And so as a result of those efforts, we were able to close down a number of chain stores, Red Rooster, National Tea, food chain in the city of Chicago. And that breadbasket, economic justice, consumer campaign, Keep a Slice of Bread in the black community, just expanded and grew into Operation Push, and now the Rainbow Push Coalition, which was formed after Reverend Jackson's historic runs for president. I majored in chemistry as an undergrad and was an environmental scientist for a period. Went to law school, practiced law as a criminal defense attorney for, I guess, almost 30 years. And I do church law now, and I'm back at Push again, having been in and out of, on and off the staff, working with, as the director of Push for Excellence and as senior advisor to Reverend Jackson.
Well, of course, you've been in the battlefield for quite some time, and if you heard the news, in the month of May, 66 people were killed, 400 shot. The shootings are not just on the west and south side of Chicago. It's happening in the South Loop, the heart of downtown, and even this past weekend, Melrose Park. My question to you, should Illinois lawmakers revisit the conceal and carry law because the shooting outbreaks is all over Chicago?
Well, I don't think you can outgun this violence. This violence is a public health issue. It is also a mental health issue. And at the very core of it, it's a spiritual health issue. So the reason we say violence is a public health issue, you can't treat it with just one fix. It's not going to stop the violence. You can increase the number of police officers, but that will not stop the shootings. one of the things we have to stop the flow of guns into the communities where the violence is occurring. It's concentrated in large measure in pockets of poverty, high unemployment, high illiteracy, and those communities where there's been no investment in organized recreation for young people after school. The schools are under-resourced and closed once children leave. Unlike in the suburbs, the school is a community center. In the city, schools are warehouses for our children. They don't have gym, they don't have recreation, and then there's nothing happening for them after school, so then they are left to their own devices. The amount of drugs that are in these pockets of violence cause the violence to occur because the main source of income is the drug trade. They are absolute manufacturing drugs in places where we used to have a Western Electric and where we had Sears stores and we had Spiegel catalog stores, where you had employment. You now have unemployment and food deserts, employment deserts, housing, foreclosures, and then schools closed. So you have places now where they're devoid of any any support systems, and the people. Not that there's an excuse for violence, but it is the end product of high unemployment, low educational graduation rates, concentrations of poverty, the inability for people to move about even where jobs are available, and the lack of resources for children.
So basically, you're saying are you open for the lawmakers to revisit, or are you just saying because of
I'm opposed to conceal and carry. I think it only will increase the number of guns on the street. It will not reduce the shootings, nor will it decrease the killings. One of the things that will stop the killings, if you begin to punish with criminal laws those who sell guns to people with mental diseases, people with violent criminal backgrounds, and without proper background checks. If they have parents whose children have guns, if parents are punished for their minor children, it will reduce the access that they have of guns in the home. The other thing is tracing the bullets back to the original weapon. And so begin to focus on the bullets and the guns and the seller of guns. And you punish people. If you bought a gun at where we know 50% of the guns in Chicago are sold from Chuck's Gun Shop, and you were the original purchaser, and that gun is involved in a shooting, then you have some liability. People will stop buying guns as straw purchasers.
In 2012, you guys protested, the Rainbow Push Coalition protesting in front of the AMC River North movie theater. Reverend Jackson called for an assault weapons ban. However, it fell on deaf ears. You said, and I quote, "It's our time, it's our season. The amount of deaths, injuries resulting from gun use says that this is a moment in time." Can you elaborate on that? And I'll repeat it again because it's our time, it's our season, the amount of deaths and injuries resulting from gun use that is in a moment of time. What do you mean by that?
Well, biblically, there's this moment that is known as Kairos. It's not a chronological moment in time, but it is in the fullness of time, certain things occur, and it's time for an action around a particular thing. The level of gun violence and gun fatalities that we're witnessing now as we were then is even greater now. It says to us, to this present living generation, it's our challenge and our responsibility to address the proliferation of death and injury as a result of the use of misuse of guns by citizens as well as police. And it's something that we have it's a calling to address. We can't ignore it. We can't keep, people watch television so long as the shooter doesn't hit anyone they know. They tend to ignore the fact that, as you have just quoted, these statistics are alarming. They're unnatural. We have adjusted to this level of violence in the city of Chicago as if, well, this is Chicago. We never had this kind of violence when I was a child. I didn't have to worry about being hit by a stray bullet on a swing at a playground or in the park. Our children cannot walk home from school without fear of being shot or one of their playmates being shot. They cannot enjoy this summer without the fear of getting shot or killed by a random bullet that knows no name, but it just hits whoever happens to be in that direction. So this is a moment where I've said recently we must reclaim our neighborhoods block by block. And we said that in the late 90s, and it called it Operation Man. Say that each family, each church, each person, take control of the block where you live, take control of 1 square block where that church sits, where your house is, and declare that a safe zone, a no shooting zone. I mean, there's no justification for the level of shooting that we have on the streets. It's just none. There's just absolutely no reason for it. That is not the way to resolve conflict. And as we look at, when you listen to the people, the nature of the conflict, it's not based on anything reasonable. It's irrational behavior.
Chicago police are saying majority of the gun violence are gang related, social media related as well. Do you think there is a gang war or a turf war going on in the city of Chicago?
I'm not so sure that it's a gang war. It may be a turf war, but I think it's a lot bigger than that. People who have access to weapons become frustrated, and if you had no guns, it would be fewer casualties, and it would be less violent. Guns, especially assault weapons, are deadly. Are very deadly.
A lot of innocent people was killed over the last few months in 2016. I asked this question last year and the year before that, and it seems more apparent this year because of social media, shootings on the expressways, and social media outlets are keep on putting this movie called The Purge. Are people purging on the lives of innocent people because of the movie called The Purge?
I don't know if it's because of a single movie. I believe that social media helps to exacerbate frustrations, because now when I may be angry with you, I would not be able to vent in a viral place like I can now, posting on Facebook, tweeting it out. And so now whatever people think and they would not normally voice in public, it's very easy to do it because people can't see you necessarily. And you can just say whatever you want to say without fear of repercussion. But now the retaliation is deadly, because once it hits Facebook, it's not easily recalled. Once it hits Twitter or Instagram, and you see people bullying through social media, they are threatening people in social media. And I do think it has a tremendous impact if you and I are dating and then you're also dating someone else, they see that in social media, and I could become a target unknowingly of your other girlfriend. And so that's the kind of stuff that is happening with students in school. The bullying is causing a significant amount of violence, which may result in shootings. Also, the music is very different now than it was in my generation. We certainly were not perfect people, but the type of music we listened to was not that music that encouraged violence as much as it does today. When you have these artists, and it's a proliferation of them now, like Chief Keef and others who promote and project violent images, they're brandishing guns and bullet shootings, and it's just it's a culture that creates this explosive, hostile nature, and many of the movies that are now being produced continue to project this violence. And so I think it all plays a part in this overall atmosphere that makes people adjust to a violent climate.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned about the music, because there's several music songs that's out there that people are talking about. One, well, I'll go back to last summer. There was a famous song called "I'm in Love with the Cocoa," and that means cocaine. And it was one of the number one songs out there. They were playing it on GCI Power 92, and it was all over. And nobody didn't get the concept. And basically, they had to do an edited version because it was so graphic on YouTube. They had to cut it and re-edit it because they demonstrated how to make cocaine. Now you have this song currently that's number one on GCI and Power 92 called "You Got to Cut It," meaning that you have to cut your drug prices, meaning you're buying a brick, you have to cut the prices so I can get it. They're not saying you got to cut cut the light bills, or you got to cut it with this or cut it with that. They're saying that you got to cut the drug prices so I can get it.
Wow.
This type of behavior, this phenomenon or epidemic that you just said, that changes the culture, changes the way that we are thinking. It's Operation Push, prepared to do something with GCI and Power 92 and say, hey, you got to stop playing this.
Well, I think we are prepared to meet with Power 92 and with GCI to really discuss it. Yes.
Well, can I stop you there, because and I'm sorry, because I'm kind of like real passionate about this. I've worked with GCI and Power 92 regarding the music issue, and one of the solutions that I came up with was some of the music that plays on WGCI or Power 92 is unsuitable for children under a certain age. It was like listener discretion is advised, and they play it 4 hours. They denied that request that I mentioned, and also they denied the request that we will have a community member on the board who listens to the music. So
what I would like you to do is send me the list that you have and a sample of the letter that you sent. And so I think we need to ask for a meeting to discuss it.
Yes, I really do, because I will say this right on the air. Matt Scarino was very adamant, saying that no, he will not play the viewer discretion, or he will not censor, because what we need to do is go to the music industry and complain. It's a shame that you have a 12-year-old kid.
I don't want to discuss what they may or may not do without first giving them an opportunity to have a discussion. I have found that those who are in charge have been open and receptive to issues when brought to them, and so I'm not going to on radio have a discussion about people that I've not had the discussion with. So first, I would like to get the list as many that you have of the kind of music, and we'll call for a meeting with them and have a discussion.
No, absolutely. I am very open to that.
And that's the way we do it. Push. We do not call for a boycott until we.
No, I'm not saying call for a boycott or anything.
I'm not going to say what they will or won't do until we've had a conversation with them.
Yeah, that's the only thing I'm asking. Start having a conversation. But let me get back to the violence. You and the Rainbow Push Coalitions were involved in several protests concerning Chicago police brutality cases. Emperor, on Friday, recently released a total of 100 videos of current and old cases of alleged police brutality, including police shootings. One in particular is the case of Betty Jones. Still, the police officer has not been charged with wrongdoing, and it has been stated via internet and the press that the police officer did not state the person they were targeting were swinging a bat until days later that he written in a report. Is Rainbow Push going to look at these videos that were released on the internet and see what's going to happen after that? Is there like an action plan?
Well, we're developing an action plan, yes. One of the things that we are doing is, one, reviewing the report, and we are excited and pleased that this first step of releasing the information, the videos, has been done. We have consistently complained about the fact that all of the police officers in that case were not charged. Charging doesn't mean they're guilty, but it does mean that they will be forced to respond in a court of law, and that there's some charges pending against them, because it is our opinion that it appears that the police officers falsified report in that case, and perhaps in many other cases. And that is why we push so hard for the release of all videos and all information. Because this idea that you do a report 3 days later after you've had time to consult with each other is just wrong. And for example, police officers engaged in a shooting, there's no testing, drug testing or alcohol sobriety testing of the police officer that night. Can't test somebody 3 days later, yet they do test the contents of the victim to see if the victim was on a drug. Why not the person that was shooting a gun? Whoever it is, police officer or civilian. So yes, we do have a plan, but we're in the process of reviewing the report from IPRA and looking at the videos to determine how we should be responding. And we have consistently been calling for an purely independent police review board, and that one cannot be appointed by the mayor, because that's not independent at all.
So you're putting an action plan together and to be announced very soon. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
A couple of weeks ago, you stated to a community leader at City Hall, and I quote, "We are fighting the same cause. However, we are going at it at the cause differently." And that stuck to me when I was there, when you had the conversation with this community leader, because young Black men feel like their voice are not being heard, period. And in order to get attention, they have to use force or get in your face tactics in order for their voice or opinions to get heard. Are you trying to reach out to the young Black men that were protesting at the Laquan McDonald case to say, hey, we understand, we know how you feel. Let's work on this together. Let's do this together instead of going separate ways.
Oh, we've been talking to the young black men and the young black women and the young people generally about this level of protest. I come from a generation of protesters and organizers, and the thing that one must always realize, whether you are old or young, this is not the first time we've engaged in protest and civil disobedience. There has always been a strategy and a methodology, and it is important to make sure that you plan your strategy and then you work your plan. The spontaneity of some of the protests can be dangerous, and um, there's some value from listening to those who have done it before, not to tell you what you can't do, but to tell you what happens when you do certain kinds of things, just to give some historical frame of reference and insight. The other thing that working together means that we we are their protection in many ways, and they also have to know that you need resources, because if you say you're going to get arrested, you need resources to make sure that the cases are properly defended and that you are not left with lasting matters that should have been addressed early on. So you need to make sure you have appropriate lawyers present, appropriate financial resources, and that's what work together means. It also means sometimes talking through the strategy, making sure that it's the best strategy for the moment. I admire and we applaud those young people. Had they not demonstrated consistently every single day, I suspect that we would not have been able to defeat Anita Alvarez in the primary. And all of these tapes would not have been released had they not been pressuring every single day. I really congratulate William Calloway and his team for the FOIA requests that they made. And I mean, so they have been quite effective and very good.
You discussed earlier jobs and the lack of resources of in the African American community. Some people say they are the results in the uptick in the violence is due to those things that I've just mentioned here in Chicago. Why politicians, knowing the needs of their communities, they are not very vocal to the mayor to say we need opportunities here in our communities, not just downtown?
Well, I think it's more than being vocal to the mayor. It is strategically deciding to make sure that when businesses seek approval for zoning and for the opportunities to exist in one place, one has to have a strategy for making sure that the investment is in the neighborhoods as well as in the Loop area. One of the things that Gus Savage, former Congressman Gus Savage, knew how to do was to make sure that he was a Senate, a House Appropriations Committee that handled. He was on a committee that handled the federal leases, and one of the things that he did was to hold up leases for certain projects until the other congressman agreed to name the building downtown the Metcalf building. And so you have to learn the rules of your particular political office and use the rules and different things that other people want for their communities as leverage to get what you want for your community, whether it's a congressman or whether you are an alderman or a state representative or a county commissioner. You have to be able to meet the needs of your people. It is unconscionable that all of these foreclosures exist in our communities, these closed schools that are vacant and are offering no viable use for the communities where they sit. So,
Black men are not getting their fair share of jobs, opportunities, and again, their voices are not heard from the politicians regarding seeing other races in their communities getting first crack at the jobs in their own communities. The number one issue is construction companies are saying the following things: you are not trained, you have a record, you did not pass the drug test. However, other races face the same obstacle, but they get hired. Why is this growing epidemic is happening just to African American men?
racism in the construction trades has been the history of America. And until we organize and consistently shut down jobs that are in our community, unless we are participating in them, that will continue. The building trades have consistently refused to allow African Americans to be enter the apprenticeship programs and then later become journeymen. It's a very difficult process to do, and unless our elected officials work with the community and say, I will not approve zoning, I will not approve certain kinds of licensing uh, requirements until and unless I see a representative number of constituents from those neighborhoods work, it will continue to be that way. We have to, those who are most affected have to cry out. You cannot ignore it and just say, well, that's just the way it is. It's not the way it has to be.
Period.
So that's where you have to have direct action.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to switch gears here and talk about what happened in the news and in social media. Last week, two African American young men were denied their graduation for unnecessary reasons. One because of facial hair, the other was denied because he wore a kente cloth scarf. The reason I bring this up is because they were honor students. They worked hard. They have 4.0 grade point averages, and despite their circumstances, they achieved. However, they were bombarded with negative images, but they choose positive to hang in there. We talked about hidden racism, and when you see young African Americans fighting, doing positivity or positive things because of facial hair, because he decided to honor his culture. It didn't harm anyone. It didn't say anything, but they were denied to walk across that stage or to say anything. And they denied their parents, their family to encourage them. Now, on the flip side of that, you have the negative sayers that says, you know what? I told you so. I told you if, why not sling these bags of rocks or do this or do something negative, and they're trying to do something positive and this happens. My question to you is there something that Operation Push could do in order to kind of like stop this kind of hidden racism or attacks on young black men, and because they're picking on every nook and cranny that they can find, that's saying, well, we're not going to allow you to speak because you got facial hair. No, you can't wear your kente cloth.
Well, one of the things certainly we would support our students. However, having said that, it depends on what the rules of the school were that they were given to the. There's usually for every school. There's a graduation criteria. I don't know what it was. I don't know the name of the school that these students attended. So we'd have to look into the actual facts. They may have a cause of action that will allow them to wear when you say facial hair, was mustache, was it a beard and a mustache? Was it a beard only? How much facial hair? I don't know if there were some rules already established at that individual school where they agreed that this was not going to be acceptable attire for the graduation. For example, I've been to several graduations where if you don't give a dress code, they wear all kinds of things across the stage. Some of them revealing body parts and that kind of thing. So there has to be some kind of rules. I don't know what school rules were that they agreed to or anything. I do know that the kente cloth may have something to do with whether they were required to wear a robe. Was the kente cloth outside the robe? So, I mean, there are a lot of questions I would have before I could answer that. We'd certainly like to talk to the young men and then perhaps talk to the school and see if we can have they already had the graduation.
All right. According to the National Center for Education Statistics states African American women are the most educated group in the nation. However, the study did not make any headlines from the major media outlets. The question is, when something like that happens, or really positive, showcasing African Americans in a good light is barely mentioned. However, the media is focusing on the negative. Could you answer that?
Well, the media has consistently lifted up negative images. They show us as less hardworking than we are, less intelligent than we are, more criminal and more violent than we really are. And I mean that is the design of racism, to project us in a negative light. And that is why it is important for us to continue to challenge the major media outlets to be different, and we do. But it's also necessary for us to lift up our own images, because they don't tell a positive story about us in general. The idea is to paint a picture to the world of very negative images of African Americans.
You answered the question, but I'm also going to highlight this question and you can chime in on it. According to the CDC study, states that African American fathers are more involved in their children's life than whites and Latinos, with a 78.2%. Black fathers are not living with their child or kids is a 12.6%. The CDC study was conducted and released in 2015. Again, we're highlighting the 12.6% of the individuals in mainstream media, and the study has not been publicized. I had to really dig to find this study because, again, we did some research and we found out that there are African American fathers that are very involved in their child's life.
Well, I'd like to see the study. I've not seen it to be able to intelligently respond to it. What I can say is I do know that a significant number of African American fathers are involved in the lives of their children. They don't get highlighted very often. As we approach Father's Day, might be a good time for us to push the envelope and make sure that there's a greater, more visual images of what Black fathers are doing positively. But part of the problem that Black fathers have experienced is, one, the welfare system, which forced them out of the home in the first place, and secondly, the high incarceration rates of Black men caused them to be disproportionately incarcerated, therefore out of the lives of family and their children. And it is a very difficult time to reconnect once one has been incarcerated. And oftentimes the women will tell the children that their father's dead or has deserted them, as opposed to saying where he is or what really happened. So, I mean, those are some internal issues within the Black family. But economics in many ways drives the relationship of men to their children. Inability to get the mass incarceration of black males. It's just a cycle that is very difficult and very frustrating, and then coupled with the negative images.
I will email you the study that was broadcast today. I think it'll be a fascinating read, and to showcase and highlight there are positive images of African American young men, but it's just not being put out there in mainstream media. Now, two incidents that occurred last week. One African American boy fell into a gorilla pit and the mother was criticized. According to the AP, just breaking news, we have some breaking news. The mother was not charged with wrongdoing or neglect. The second incident occurred in Chicago regarding the brawl on North Avenue Beach. One involves an African American parent whose son fell into a pit. If the boy was white, do you think the media will focus on the parenting skills and portraying her as an unfit mother? The second question in regards to the incident of the brawl, it involves young white teens and adults fighting. It was first, the news broke on the internet, and Fox News grabbed it and they broadcast it. Do you think it's time for a boycott or a conversation or a protest to media outlets that or their sponsors for their portrayal of African Americans in the media locally?
I think it is time to renew what Rainbow Push has had many years ago, our Fairness in the Media program, where we began to address the media images of African Americans as compared to other people in the United States, and really begin to demand that we have that we be projected in a more favorable light. I mean, when you look at how our president is portrayed and treated by the media and by members of Congress, governors, it is in the most disrespectful manner, and it is only because he's an African American. They would never not respect the office of president, even if they didn't like the president. But the kind of media portrayal that our president faces is symptomatic of the racism that in the media and how they project us. And so I do think that considering the renewal of our Fairness in the Media campaign and work you and other people would be something that would be very helpful.
And you guys have a hello?
I'm here.
Oh, and Operation Push has a conference that's coming up. What to expect in this year's conference?
Well, several things. On the Saturday when the conference opens up, we're going to look at Decision 2016. What are the platform issues that African Americans are urging the presidential candidates to look at, the congressional representatives, as well as those who are running for state office, state and county office? What are the critical issues that we want to address from our perspective? That's going to be that Saturday, June 25th. And then we'll have Max Wolf and several economists, Ralph Materi and John Nichols from The Nation magazine, really looking at some recommendations for how we can reinvest, how America must reinvest in urban America to rebuild the foreclosed homes, create jobs for this massive double-digit unemployment. We're going to look at some solutions to the problem, but also look at our platform. Many of them will be coming out of the Gary Black Platform Summit that is going on this week. And then on Monday, all day, we're looking at international agenda, the international agenda. We have several African countries that'll be represented. The First Lady of Ghana and South Africa will be at the Women's Luncheon along with former Secretary Hillary Clinton. Then it's education all day. We're looking at the state of K-12 education, its funding, its curriculum, and what's happening to Black and brown children, looking at higher education and the survival of HBCUs. And we will honor many of our graduates. Honor those Greek African-American sororities and fraternities who have been supporting and funding education for a number of years for the work that they do. And then on Tuesday, we're looking at the state of labor, looking at, for example, the Nabisco workers whose jobs are being shipped to Mexico, where they pay $25 an hour for workers here in Chicago, going to Mexico making maybe $6 a week in wages, the same to produce the Ritz crackers and Nabisco cookies. And then on Wednesday, diversity in business, access to health care, health disparities. And the business luncheon, economic reciprocity in Silicon Valley and automotive industry.
Can I throw in my 2 cents in here for a second, Doctor?
You sure can.
Okay. I always wanted to ask this question since I have you on the phone. Gas station and African American community, it's like goes hand in hand. Unfortunately, there is not even 1% now of African American owned and operated gas station or grocery stores. Can that be some type of question or dialogue or a program to be set up so we can start seeing African American owned gas station and grocery stores?
Well, absolutely. We used to have 3 grocery stores. It was Food Basket. We had at one time 6 black banks in Chicago. Now we're down to maybe 1. We had a number of black-owned restaurants in the city, and many of them have closed, and we've declined significantly. We had a lot of black-owned businesses that have just gone as a part of the recession that hit us harder than they call it a recession. It was depression for us, and we have not rebounded from that. As you say, the black service stations, the black grocery stores, black hair care. We had our own hair care distributorships. We used to distribute our own, manufacture and distribute our own hair products. Ultra Sheen, gone. Soft Sheen, gone. And so you look at the black hair care manufacturers, the only one we have left in the city is Luster Products. Dudley had an outlet store on 95th Street. So a lot of the black-owned businesses, we were manufacturing Stewart's bleach, Grove Fresh orange juice. We still make Parker House sausage. But just a lot of the businesses we once had are gone, and so we have to talk about creating new black-owned businesses, moving back into gas stations and other areas. We have no black auto dealer in the city. You have only one in the suburbs, and that's Sutton Ford. And those are some of the things that we are working on and push is fighting for more dealerships, distributorships, and bottling companies, as well as opening up Silicon Valley. We ban iPhones and tablets and many computers, but we're not in the C-suite, and nor are we in the business of it. I had a meeting with black partners in major law firms. The number of black partners in major law firms has declined and continues to get smaller. So these are fights that we must wage today. And in many ways, they're the same fights we were waging years ago.
And if somebody wants to get in contact, want to get tickets to the Operation Push conference, who they should contact?
They can call me at 773-256-2700 or 256-2731.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And again, make sure I'm going to hold you to your word.
Hold me to my word and let me come back again as well.
Oh, yeah, I will. Okay.
I will certainly tell Reverend Jackson you want him on your program, and he'll be more than happy to do it.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. See, it wasn't that bad.
It was wonderful.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Give Reverend my love. That's going to do it for us for the Drive at 5 on IntellectualRadio.com. Thanks to Earl Winfrey, Rhea Ray, who is up next with Straight No Chasers. Don't forget, the curfew resolution is in effect and it will start as soon as 10 o'clock hits. Parents, guardians, and grandparents, the message is, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? No more killing, no more missing. Protect our children. A message provided by the Drive at 5 and the entire IntellectualRadio.com station team. That's going to do it for us for the Drive at 5. Have a good week, everyone.